Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Table Talk. I am sitting here with Mr. Aaron Felges. And last week, we looked at the book of Acts and chapters 21 through 28. And this is where Paul saw his suffering as a mirror of Jesus' suffering, which leads him into the heart of the Roman Empire, a launching pad for the announcement of God's upside-down kingdom to all the nations.
And this past week, we asked you to maybe try a couple things out. One of those was to tell anyone about a time when you were persecuted for sharing the good news. And we asked, if there was a time, share that with other people, but also let us know. Send it to us via email. We like to hear that. And also, did you share with anyone about the good news because of that? So often these conversations about persecution, people hear that, they want to hear the story, but that lends right into a story, being able to tell them about the good news. And so if you were able to do that, let us know, because we want to know, how did God bless that time for you?
And so today is going to be a little different than most of our table talks. And so what do you have for us today?
Well, today what we're going to do is we're going to do something called your 15-second testimony. And did you know you can tell your testimony in 15 seconds?
I talk a lot, I did not.
So here, before we start, let me just model that for you, all right? There was a time in my life where I was extremely selfish and very lonely. But Jesus forgave me, and I chose to follow him. And since that time, I've received great joy in serving others and having purpose in my life. Do you have a story like that?
It's a lot longer.
That was it. Very good. But I'm going to show Jason and you how to share your story in 15 seconds. So you're going to need a couple things to do this. Number one, you're going to need a piece of paper. Okay? He's got his piece of paper. You're going to need something to write with. There we go. And you're going to need a partner. Hey! There we go. All right? So go ahead, if you need to, stop the video and acquire those things. All right. So hopefully you have your piece of paper, something to write with, and a partner. Sometimes if you can't find anybody, the dog will do for now, but you can watch this again when you have somebody you can do it with. So here's what we're going to do. Okay? What we're going to do is write this with me. We're going to have an intro. All right? And an arrow showing a life before. And then we have the cross, stands for Jesus. Okay? A life after. And then we're going to ask something. Okay? So go ahead and write that out on your paper. So we had an intro. All right? There was a time in my life. Okay? Then I told you when I was extremely selfish and quite lonely. All right? But then Jesus forgave me and I chose to follow him. And since then, I've had joy in serving others and purpose in my life. Do you have a story like that? All right, so let's put this together, all right? Let's do the intro first. So, write this with me. There was a time in my life. Okay, so we got that. So now what we're going to do is practice that. We're just going to practice that up to here. And I want you to do it with your partner twice. There was a time in my life. There was a time in my life. So I'm going to do it to Jason. He's going to do it back to me. There was a time in my life. Now you do it.
There was a time in my life.
There was a time in my life.
There was a time in my life.
All right. Pretty simple so far, right?
It was much better the second time.
All right. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to look at two words that describe your life before Jesus. I told you that I was extremely selfish and very lonely. So what are your two words? There's a lot of different words that you could come up with here, but it's your life. So were you angry? Okay. Were you desperate? Were you addicted? Were you lonely? Okay. What are your two words? So everybody needs to just come up with their two words. And if you need to pause the video again to just think about what was your life before Jesus came into it. Or if you came to Jesus at an early point in your life, there's been a point where you weren't walking with him. What was your life like during that time? Come up with those two words that would describe that part of your life. Now, all right, Jason, what were your two words?
My words were selfish and prideful.
So now what we're going to do is we're going to practice our story just up to that point. So in other words, what I'll say, there was a time in my life when I was very selfish and quite lonely. So do that twice with your partner. I'll do it again with Jason. There was a time in my life when I was quite selfish and very lonely.
There was a time in my life where I was very selfish and definitely prideful.
So I'll do it again, second time. There was a time in my life when I was very selfish and lonely.
There was a time in my life where I was quite selfish and definitely prideful.
Okay, so we've got our story up to that point. Now, what I want you to do is write above the cross, write, but Jesus. So then something happened. Jesus came into our lives, all right? And we're going to put 2 words for that. Now, for most people, these 2 words are going to be something about being forgiven and choosing to follow Jesus, all right? If you don't have a brief statement, a brief phrase that can fit in that, might use different words, fall back on this one. But then Jesus forgave me and I chose to follow him, all right? So, Jason, what do you have?
For me, it was Jesus showed me an opportunity, and so I chose to follow it.
Okay, there we go. All right. So go ahead and fill out yours. Again, you can use the fallback statement, but then Jesus forgave me and I chose to follow him. That's probably 90% of what people will use in this, and that's okay. Of course, Jason, you're a little bit different.
Naturally.
All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to practice this with our partner, and we're each going to do it twice again. So I'll start out, but we're going to do the whole thing up to this point. So there was a time in my life when I was very selfish and quite lonely, but then Jesus forgave me and I chose to follow him.
So there was a time in my life where I was quite prideful and I was very selfish, but Jesus showed me an opportunity, and so I chose to follow him.
Okay, I'll do it a second time. There was a time in my life when I was very selfish and very lonely, but Jesus forgave me and I chose to follow him.
There was a time in my life where I was quite selfish and definitely prideful, but Jesus showed me an opportunity and showed himself to me, and I chose to follow him.
All right, great. So once you've practiced that with your partner, what we're going to do now is come up with 2 words that would describe our life since choosing to follow Jesus. In other words, what's your life like now? I told you that I had joy in serving and having purpose. Okay? So you need to come up with your 2 words. What do you have now? Do you have joy in your life? Do you have meaning in your life? Okay? What are your 2 words that would describe your life since choosing to follow Jesus? It's going to be different for everybody. It's your life. Jason, what were your 2 words?
Empowering others and spreading his love.
There we go. All right. So after you've chosen your 2 words, go ahead and write those down, and then we're going to practice with our partner. Again, we're going to practice 2 times each. All right? Jason, there was a time in my life when I was very selfish and quite lonely, but Jesus forgave me and I chose to follow him. Now I have joy in serving others and I have purpose.
I have to read mine.
Go ahead. That's why it's there.
There was a time in my life when I was quite selfish and definitely prideful, but Jesus showed me an opportunity, and so I chose to follow him. And since then, I've really enjoyed empowering others and showing his love to others as well.
Very good. There was a time in my life when I was very selfish and quite lonely, but Jesus forgave me and I chose to follow him. And now I have joy in serving others and I have purpose.
There was a time in my life when I was quite selfish and definitely prideful, but then Jesus showed me an opportunity and I chose to follow him. And since then, I've enjoyed empowering others and sharing his love with other people.
Amen. All right.
Awesome.
So now let's go to the final part, and that's the ask. And we're going to ask a simple question after. So we've shared really, this is our testimony. This is our story, okay? Very short and succinct. But then we're going to ask, do you have a story like that? All right, so that's the same for everybody. So we're asking this question because we want to engage in conversation. We want to find out, where are they at with Jesus? Are they welcoming this? And they say, yes, I have a story like that too. Or are they looking at you like, I don't know what you're talking about. What is this thing? Okay. But what we're going to do now is we're going to take a pause, and what we're going to do is practice this 3 times each. All right. So Jason, we're just going to go through it once here, but I want you to pause the video and practice this 3 times each. So there was a time in my life when I was very selfish and lonely, but Jesus forgave me and I chose to follow him. And now I have joy in serving others and I have purpose. Do you have a story like that?
I do. There was a time in my life where I was quite selfish and very prideful, but Jesus showed me an opportunity and I chose to follow him. And in doing that, I've since loved empowering other people and leading other people through his love. Do you have a story like that?
And there we go. So I want you to do that 3 times each, okay? And it's very, very simple. Now, you can share this with just about anybody, couldn't you? And here's sort of the key. If you can get into a conversation with somebody to try to find out where they're at, you can expand this. In other words, I could take this from 15 seconds to 3 minutes just by doing this. Share with them why I chose these 2 words, okay? I can share with them how I was forgiven and chose to follow him. And that's the gospel right there, all right? And then I can share with them why I chose these 2 words. And by telling them that why in the second part of our life, it really shares with them the reason for Jesus, okay? And empowers us to do that. So in taking your testimony here, so what do we do next with this? What do you suppose we do next with this, Jason?
Do it.
Do it, okay? So here's what I want you to do. I want you to pray, and I want you to think about 3 people. 3 people. It could be someone very close to you, could be someone you don't know well. Well, I want you to just think about 3 people and put their names down here that you could share this 15-second story with in the next week. Could be someone in your own household, could be a neighbor, someone at work, an acquaintance, wherever. You can do it over the phone, doesn't matter. But who are 3 people that you could share this with? And then ask them, do you have a story like that? And just see where the Lord leads in this conversation. And you know, if they say, yes, I have a story like that, teach them how to share it in 15 seconds. And now we have another soldier for Christ out there sharing the good news. Another thing you can do is if they say, no, I don't have a story like that, you can then share the 3 circles with them, which we have on our website at feedtheneed.org/tabletalk. And you can look at the 3 circles, and that'll show you how to share this gospel message, but Jesus. All right. What do you think, Jason?
I think this is great, and it's very applicable, and it's very easy to do. Obviously, this being online and our table talks, there's a different connection that we get when we're in person. And I feel like there's a lot more accountability to do our homework, if you will. And so I want to encourage you guys, yes, it may be nerve-wracking to write down 3 people's names and go have this conversation, but what Jesus is going to do in your life and in the life of that other person when you actually step out in faith and do it is transforming in such a way that we can't even explain. Right?
Amen.
When
Amen.
Jesus and his love takes over in that moment, it really is a way that we grow. And that's what we want. And that's the whole purpose of why we do these videos.
And Jesus isn't seeking you to do this perfectly, although it's only 15 seconds. I think it's not too hard. He's not seeking you to do it perfectly. He's seeking you to do it. He's just looking for your obedience. And he will bless you in that. God bless you guys. Any final words, Jason?
Good job.
I am in.
I didn't know you could get me down to 15 seconds. So now it's your turn.
Hard work. God bless you guys.
This month, we've been talking about our core value of simplicity. The more we complicate ministry, the more we get in the way. Keep to the heart of the ministry by feeding people both physically and spiritually. About the simplest verse, and we all should know it, is John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life.